Welcome to COP27. We're here with Papua New Guinea and the Coalition for Rainforest Nations. As you can see on the wall here, has had tremendous success since its Paris Accord agreement in 2015. It has really ceased successfully the rate of deforestation, really mobilizing capital into those local economies to protect our most precious natural resource here, the rainforest. And without them, we certainly wouldn't be there today. So thank you for Papua New Guinea and the Coalition for Rainforest Nations for supporting our panel today. So our panel today is focused on transition to circular economies. And I'm Kimberly Johnston. I'm a climate advocate. I work closely with NGOs, high-ranking government officials, and the private sector, bringing them all together to converge and really think differently of systems on how to transform our economies to be more resilient and sustainable. It is my pleasure to host today some global climate luminaries. We have joining us Ethel Bunch, who's the CEO and founder of Sustainable South Carolina, as well as Global to Local. Her work is tremendous and has really sparked economic change differently across the private sectors. In addition, I have the CEO and Executive Director, Lauren Sokin, who is with Global Resilient Cities Network, which is backed by the Rockefeller Foundation, as well as many others from the private as well. And she has tremendous incredible journey and stories to share on creating circular economies. So we'll first start with hearing from both these ladies on their work, their organizations, and how they view circular economies as we kick off this panel discussion.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Kimberly Johnston because she is the woman behind all the planning of these events and these panels. So thank you, Kimberly, for having us today. As Kimberly said, I'm Ethel Bunch. I'm founder and CEO of Sustain SC. It's been fun for me to be at COP this year and last year. The minute I open my mouth and people hear my accent, they're like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "South Carolina." They're like, "No," so I'm confused. I'm like, "Oh, the United States." So we'll start there, and then it's a guessing game from there. But so suffice it to say, I think I'm the only person from South Carolina at COP.
But Sustain SC is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to connect the sustainability goals of business in South Carolina with local solutions. All of this to benefit our economy, our environment, and our people. And we have over 1,200 global companies
In South Carolina, they call South Carolina home. And we also rely heavily on forestry, agriculture, and tourism as our economic drivers. So our natural resources are extremely invaluable to our state. And what we really are doing is working with those companies that are here in South Carolina and looking at their global goals and their ambitions, and how can we really match those, play kind of matchmaker of demand and supply to bring those to the very local, very granular scale. So when we think about circularity, we are really looking at this as how can we bring new green economic innovation to our state? And the circular economy is obviously very top level. It's that new economic driver that we're seeing. And without going into too many details or too many success stories, right now, what we really found in South Carolina is what we were calling maybe trash. For so long has this enormous economic value now. So we're going to get into more granular how we're looking at waste and how we're looking at capitalizing on that waste in South Carolina. So with that, I'll hand it over to Lauren.
Thanks, Ethel. Thank you, Ethel, and thank you, Kimberly, for the invitation. Really pleased to be here, and as we start out, I also want to thank everyone for joining us for the conversation, as well as those who are joining us online. It's really special to be here in the Coalition for Rainforest Nations Pavilion. For me in particular, because when I was a young girl, it was actually
the Amazon rainforest and the stories that I read about that inspired me to start my own work in the environment. The first project that I ever worked on, I finished my university studies in environmental economics, was actually a project on Amazon conservation. And without our rainforests, the lungs of the world really would be in a terrible state, and we need to be doing a lot more in order to halt deforestation. So I really appreciate the space and the opportunity to be here in this pavilion today talking about circular economy. So I'm Lauren Sorkin, and I'm the executive director of a group called the Resilient Cities Network. And Resilient Cities Network is an organization of 100 city members around the world who work together to reduce their impact through circular economy, work on climate resilience and equity. And through our member cities, we implement projects on the ground that really focus on protecting their most vulnerable communities. We know that cities are both our greatest risk and our biggest opportunity when it comes to climate change. Cities produce about 75% of our emissions. Much of that is from the built environment sector, embedded carbon, and we could talk later about the circular economy opportunities that are embedded in the building sector. A lot of that comes from transport, and then a lot of that comes from waste. And so we work very closely with our cities to create more circular and resilient systems and eliminate the concept of waste and really look at materials, a topic that Ethel also referred to, and I think we'll talk about more. But I think the key message here really is that we can, by taking a much more holistic and circular view, really transform the way we work in cities, and that will have a tremendous impact on reducing our emissions and responding to the climate crisis.
Wonderful to hear the tremendous work that you both are doing. And when you think about the circular economies and the impact it can have on solving the climate crisis, and especially in urban areas where they're dense with populations, they have that built environment, they're carbon intense. But then we know urban areas have natural-based solutions. They're vibrant with biodiversity. But then there is these challenges of supply chains and waste. And so when thinking about circular economies, specifically, what are you seeing as the challenges and some of the headwinds in moving that forward?
So SustainSC has embarked on a study. SDSN came out with the SDG rankings for the United States, and we ranked 37 out of 50 states towards the SDG goals. We could look at that and think in South Carolina, well, California, of course, is highly regulated. So 37 sometimes in South Carolina doesn't sound that bad. But the fact of the matter is we are ranking below Georgia, North Carolina, below Florida, which are all our competitors when we're trying to attract industry to our state. So when we really looked at the SDGs, we looked at the indicators, we started looking at the targets and digging in to that study and understanding why we were being left behind and falling behind. Responsible consumption and production was a major area where we really saw South Carolina failing. Certainly, we looked at energy consumption and the emissions and everything that was part of those indicators, but where we were falling really the lowest was in recycling. So when we're looking at circularity and the circular economy, it's much more focused on that recycling piece. And so the challenges are that our infrastructure is broken. Our recycling are very much by municipality. There's no statewide streamlined approach. So those are kind of the challenges we're facing. The opportunities we're facing are these new innovations where we have a company called Glassworks. They cannot get their hands on enough glass in South Carolina. They have a technology where they're building a seawall for sea level rise out of recycled glass. And so we're working obviously to streamline that process to get them that end product that they need that's going into our landfills. We're a textile state, right? That's what we were kind of founded on. We've got a company called Fiber Solutions that we just attracted Amazon's global head of circularity to Columbia, South Carolina, I'm very proud to say, who is heading up this new transition of all of our clothes. We know that the fashion industry is one of the biggest industries filling our landfills. And so now they have a technology taking the clothing back to its natural state, but continuing the textile process with its clothes. I can go on and on with all of these examples. But what we're really, you could have consolidated Keurig, Nestle, all who need their bottles back. You saw the Dasani bottles, I think that they're serving here, 100% recycled, recycle again. You know, there's this demand that they have to bring every plastic bottle that leaves their bottling facility back. So all of a sudden, you're seeing these new verticals and this incredible economic opportunity that instead of going into that landfill, that you're going to start to capitalize. Again, we talk a lot about capitalism, jobs, investments, and then obviously the reduction strategies that happen with that in South Carolina. So huge opportunity when it comes to recycling.
I think you can see why Echo is so effective at doing what she does. Because Kimberly asked her about headwinds, and she talked about the headwinds for about 30 seconds, and then she talked about solutions. I think that's right. Because the truth is, there are a lot of headwinds in terms of the numbers, right? They're growing very quickly. So we look at cities. Pace of construction is very fast, and so often the pressure to get housing infrastructure set up into an economy coming into cities can cause us to build fast and build according to business as usual. And that can be very wasteful, right? We know that our cement industry generates a lot of emissions and also a lot of waste, right? When we're transforming buildings. Now, there are lots of opportunities for recycling concrete and doing things in terms of different kinds of mixes, but in a lot of places, there's not regulation to improve that. So what I would say in terms of headwinds, a lot of what we have to do is set up the right policy framework and the incentive structures. When we do that, we do see the solutions rushing in. So, the construction sector, I think, has a huge opportunity in this area. I don't want to call it a huge headwind. I want to call it a huge opportunity. And I think the other place that we see a lot of opportunity, especially in cities, is around food. So in terms of our food system, it's pretty thin. About a third of the food that we produce around the world is a huge consumer of water, huge consumer of energy in terms of refrigeration. It never makes it to the foods, right? And then those wasted foods are going to landfills, and that causes a lot of methane emissions. Some statistics show that if food waste itself were a country, it would be the third largest in America. So this is a serious, again, opportunity for us to close that loop, because we also know that about 150 million urban inhabitants are food insecure range. And that has obviously been aggravated in terms of what's happening now with the war in Ukraine, right? There's not supply chain security for us in our little cities. So we have a huge opportunity here to work with cities on creating more resilient food systems, by making sure that the food that does make it to our cities isn't wasted, and by prioritizing healthy and nutritious foods to be grown in our cities. There's lots of opportunities around vertical farming, reducing plastic waste, and that way when things are produced locally. So one of the things that we're working on now is a campaign called Economies, which is working with 20 cities on our network to really focus in on the strategies that dramatically reduce food waste and then support food security and resilient food systems. So I would say construction and food, there's a lot that needs to be done in order to make it possible for the industry to actually recycle and close the loop. And in terms of food waste, likewise, we have to make it easier for people to repurpose food that doesn't get purchased in those first few days, or that it doesn't get consumed when it's served in their stores.
Okay, so I'm going to take it very granular again, back to South Carolina. So agriculture is our second economic driver, and what I'm really seeing, and also one of the most conservative, probably, farmers and kind of more conservative population in the state. But we are seeing a huge transition in sustainable ag in South Carolina. So one is we have an ag tech campus, which is an opportunity zone, which is our lowest socioeconomic areas. And that is this greenhouse using less water, using less energy, but also ensuring food security within our state. And it's been nationally given awards, super exciting there. But we also are doing methane capture. And so we have a company called Green Gas that is working with all of our local farmers to capture the methane from the waste. And all of a sudden, the farmer is able to get a new income. They're doing nothing differently. They are reducing their own footprint. And we have an injection plant in Georgetown, South Carolina, that is already utilizing, injecting that renewable natural gas. And Mercedes was the first purchaser. And then all of a sudden, Volvo, of course, got very jealous. And so now Volvo and went up to BMW and up the state. And now it's this huge demand for that resource. It's like a win-win. When you talk about circularity, it's with the gas. Yes, I can tell you that statistic. But there's like 350 jobs created by the Ag Tech campus. But this in turn is creating, it's growing quicker than they can keep up with. But again, utilizing that ag resource, we want food security. We do not want waste. And then what are those alternative new green energy opportunities? So,
Ethel, absolutely. These are great examples of the opportunity. And sure, there are headwinds, but certainly you can see pathways at scale on viable solutions. And when you think about renewable natural gas, and it's what Warren is indicating, when the policy, the regulations really enable and open up those market opportunities, it is a targeted. So the renewable natural gas projects, and you think renewable natural gas, we're going to see more on. And it's spent a lot of time in the energy sector, but it is really using the landfills and the biomass, and the regulations have been amended to see those advanced biofuels as a means to generate clean energy and really redesign the agricultural sector. So it is phenomenal how many projects are there, and they all and the regulators, along with the public and the private sector and the NGOs, they really determine the amount of megawatts to really and the licensing and permitting, because some of the licensing and permitting can take a decade. And I think when we bring people together to say, we're running out of time, we have food deserts in our areas, we have a tremendous amount of waste and landfills. Let's repurpose those as production. And so you're seeing that regulations really redesign the permitting laws where people can deploy those and implement immediately within like 30 days. So that's tremendous. So thank you for highlighting the success stories. It's very encouraging. I think many people think it's still an ambition, and you clearly are seeing with these two ladies here today with Global Resilient Cities and Sustain South Carolina that they are moving from ambition to action. So when you think about COP27, and I know many of you have been here for several COPs, maybe highlight your COP experience and where you see progress or hope for this COP27 and moving to go.
So for me, I think having last year was my first COP, and it was all inspiring. There was so much conversation. I think we saw the financial institutions step up to the plate. We saw the private sector step up to the plate. But I think we were still in conversations and ambitions. And what I remember from that is to say, no, it's not for action. And we can really work in that area in a global scale to start to translate those ambitions into action with the companies that are in our state. And so to me, I think the resounding thing we're hearing is that this needs to translate from vision into action. And really conversations around implementation, and also around how do we bring all the stakeholders together and get out of our silos, which I know you've been trying to do. But when we're talking about collaborative capital, we're talking about really being able to let down those boundaries and work together. I think I'm really walking away from this one, not even just looking at my mistake renewal, but even myself. You know, if we all I think company are knowing that if we worry about our footprint and we are thoughtful of our footprint, but even going with community, I mean, I think everyone's feeling that encouragement.
So I think my first thought was a token vegan. So I've been going to the Economies for a while. And last year in Glasgow, after being apart because of COVID-19, I think it was a moment where you felt countries, you felt partners standing up straighter, right, kind of dusting themselves off after that setback for COVID, and really raising their ambitions and making big pledges. Right? And Glasgow felt extremely encouraging in that way. At the same time, the reports that have come out between Glasgow and Sharm el Sheikh have not been encouraging in terms of real progress. And I think what is different about this COP27 is that it really feels like a very focused, very grounded COP. Right, the theme is together for implementation, and you kind of feel that there's not a lot of big pledges without really thoughtful action plans, and it feels like a COP, and not just because it's very hot here, but it does feel like a COP where people are rolling up their sleeves and they're saying, what is it that we have to get on with? And they're really focusing on specific pathways for action. And I know that while it wasn't necessarily surprising to see the context, I thought when the COP presidency put out their agenda for adaptation and resilience on the 8th, it was quite specific. And it really talked about actions that you can, as a company, you can, as a country, you can, as a city, look at, and you see yourself in those actions. And you see the kinds of policies and projects that you can get involved in, the kinds that we've been talking about here, whether it's waste to energy or circular food systems and reforming our agriculture sector, reducing deforestation. They're very specific in the things we need to do. And I think that's really representative of where we are in the climate conversation, right? We have talked a lot, we have the data, and now we have to really get to work on these specific action areas. Excellent, and to get to work. And we know as in the work of climate how challenging it is, and it's going to go on decades beyond our lifetime. So when you think about all the work that we've done, your teams have done, your network has done, and you think about the need for the next generation, what would be the advice that you would give that next generation or your children in this space to inspire and really take on that implementation at the next level?
So I have two girls, a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old, and so to me, I think obviously that generation, this is in their DNA. It's not, you know, for me, a 50-year-old growing up in the South, you know, it was somewhat of a boulder up a mountain approach, but for them, I mean, there's no question. I mean, whether it's school or their, you know, just day-to-day life, but this is going to be a part of their world, and they respect and claim their natural resources, and you know, will only continue to invest in this. So it's not really how much the convincing is not there, right? I think that the advice I would give them is to don't give up on us. I mean, I'd start there. We're setting a table that they need to continue, even at that younger age, to have a very loud voice, because we're listening, and it's powerful. So do not be afraid. And again, of course, I do a plug for women. As women, you know, don't ask permission. That was a resounding conversation we had last night at a women's empowerment dinner. You know, earn your space at the table and really understand that we're very strategic, we're very empathetic creatures. and we can be very inspiring and world changing. So I think just don't give up on us, and really just your voice is being heard, and continue to speak loud.
I think it's a great question to ask, on Youth Day, right? And I was actually just commenting to my colleague about this on our way to the conference. Last night we heard from Egypt's representative, and she was explaining how today, for the first time, there is a meeting of youth and ministers where the youth will all speak first, and then the ministers will respond. And so what I would say to any young person working in this space, or really any young person, because I think this is our generation's nuclear challenge, right? It's the thing that we all have to put our brains to and solve. It will be part of everyone's career. So that share at the table has been pulled out for you as youth. So take it, stay in it, right? And I actually will say something. When I say this, but before I left, my daughters who are a little bit younger than Ethel, they're 8 and 10. Said, Mommy, good luck at the conference. And I said, well, I'm going there because we're going to be working really hard on creating solutions so that as you get older, right, these problems are going to not be as severe as they would otherwise be. And my daughter looked at me and she said, but you're that, right, Mommy? And so I think the other thing that I would say to use is that, yeah, we're going to do this. It's like we're pulling out the chair for you, but we're also staying at the table because we contributed and our previous generations contributed a lot to this. So we have to stay at the table and stay committed together because this is a multi-generational challenge, and it'll be something that our children and our children's children will be responding to as well.
Yes, thank you both. And we have a question from the audience. That was very, yes.
Hi, thank you both. That's been a really interesting panel. I'm curious to hear, in terms of your sort of portfolio of solutions that you're looking at right now, could each of you just talk about maybe the one thing that you're kind of most excited about and you think is most scalable and that we're going to find in our lives, like in the next 10 to 15 years, that's going to be more common than it isn't right now?
So one area that I see that is going to take off probably in the next decade is around two things. I think we're going to see part of the GDP metric is going to be natural-based solutions. Part of the investment value on Wall Street is going to be natural-based solutions. We need to protect them. And so I think there's tremendous opportunity there. It's going to be carried on in this next COP biodiversity in Montreal. So that I think it's going to be a game changer. The second thing in my area, focus on energy markets, as there is a tremendous amount of trillions with stimulus matched by the private sector that is going to go in clean energy technologies. We just saw yesterday in Africa. They were dependent on Russia for coal, and now they are launching a 10 megawatt plant that is going to be green hydrogen, that is going to transform that local economy. And they're going to, and its implementation is going to begin producing electricity for that region in 2024. I mean, the technology is there. It's the will, it's mobilizing that capital. So I do think we're going to see the energy sector completely transform over the next decade.
I agree with that. Kimberly, just the resources that are being applied are phenomenal, and it's just a matter of kind of managing those to be activated in the right way. For me, I think in the next decade, what we look at globally, in the South China, we talk a lot about the transition from the industrial revolution to the sustainable revolution. And I think what we're seeing, live is that is happening. It took time to start the industrial revolution. And I think as we see that, again, new jobs from investments, reduction of footprints. I think that the world can go down that. So I think there's a lot of hope in these new green economic innovations that are coming online. So, you know, I have a lot of hope for the next 10 to 14 years. I think the solutions are there. Every single panel that I've gone to has really focused on the capital group and just making sure that they're mobilizing that capital into the right entity for standardization. You know, we all know that there's that huge need to standardize what we're doing. But for me, I just think, you know, sitting back and seeing, we have the automotive cluster, the aerospace cluster, the logistics cluster. Those are all in South Carolina. And we don't call them that. It's the ED cluster, right? We talk about SAS, the aerospace cluster. And so everything is transitioned. And it's important because the private sector stood up and took the stage. And last year, financial institutions, $130 trillion worth of assets. Going to pay for climate transition. That's not an incentive to the private sector. That's a undershare. It's a no. And now we're seeing what happened this year. The private sector's voice is louder than last year's. So I find that very exciting. That's not so much circularity as just code overall.
I guess in terms of solutions, I want to come back to the two sectors that I talked about at the beginning. Building sector, I think it's very exciting to see totally different standards coming in. Concrete and recycled materials. I think in terms of emission reduction, circularity is a massive opportunity, and we're starting to see more and more countries taking advantage of it. More and more cities looking for it, procurement, and that combined with existing improving green building standards is a huge win in terms of the emissions. I think other space that is really exciting is food and sustainability. And we are seeing a lot more local farming, urban farming, vertical farming that's coming online that is available both industrial as well as like in home scale. And when we think about products like our leafy greens, that takes so much more energy to get to our plates than they are worth when we consume them in our salads. And these are the kinds of innovations that need to start happening now. Needs to start happening for all of us in terms of our carbon footprint and our circular economy classes. And the other thing is really these alternative proteins. Because when we get alternative proteins right, with the energy balance and their production, we really reduce deforestation. Let's talk about the systems change here, right? When we started this conversation talking about rainforests, we know huge source of deforestation is California. So we need to talk about those alternative proteins, great circular economy solution, their green lines.
Well, thank you. This has been extremely valuable having you both here. Such an honor. Thank you, Echo. Thank you, Lauren. Let's continue that work and bring and open the table up to that next generation and solve us together. Thank you both.